Yeah, we started out as just a basic car club, and we're trying to boost the burr up, and we're doing, car shows and all, and try to help the community. We want to get more involved with the community. Yeah, this is a '67 Ford Mustang. I bought it for my daughter's project car I got back there. She's got a '68, and a lot of the parts off of this car will actually interchange, with hers. Well, it come from about 4.5 miles from here. One of my buddies had it. He's got a small salvage yard too. So I try to stick with the cars that I like, and I've always grew up around Fords. So I reckon that's what I'll stick with forever. Didn't have an alternator back then, had a generator. So you had to keep them kind of idled up kind of high to really get the battery to stay charged. But if they still built trucks and cars and stuff with the stuff like this, I reckon it would put the big mechanics and stuff out of business, because basically everybody back then could work on these. Yeah, this truck, when it was new, it didn't even come with signals. People were still able to use hand signals. This has been added on later, aftermarket. Got the push-pull for the flashers and, you turn signals and stuff. They do not cut themselves off. You have to cut them off. It's still 3-speed on the column like it came. These were actually good trucks, and this truck does run perfect. It's got the push button. I've got it out right now. I had to order a replacement, but push button goes right here on this corner of the dash. What you did is you stick the key in it, switch it on, push the button to start it.
My name's Gene Norton. I'm the treasurer of the Southeastern Cruisers, and this is my shop, built in 1972, and I've been doing this kind of work for 42 years now. The auto body and repair, and the last several years I've got into restoring old cars part-time, and it's turned full-time. I'm retired from one job and got a full-time job at another now.
Of all the cars that you've done, are there any that are your favorites, or are they all equal?
Well, I've enjoyed doing all of them, but I guess the muscle cars is my favorite. Like 70, I had a 70 428 Cobra Jet, and probably a Shelby 66 Shelby GT350 was my favorite car. But I enjoy all of them. There you go. Just lay the car right straight down, do you? This is a 1970 Mark I Mustang. This is one of the Mustangs that I've owned over the years. I bought this car brand new in 1970, and my wife drove it most of the time. And I kept it to 1973, put about 24,000 miles on it, and I sold it to a guy that his son was turning 16 years old. And he's owned it ever since then. His daddy told him, said, "Don't never get rid of this car, son." So I'm restoring this car for him now. And I've had the car working on it off and on for about the last 5 years. Ground up restoration, everything brand new on the car, new suspension, new everything. Whatever it got, whatever it needed, it's got. If you'll notice under the hood, it's got a 351 Windsor engine. The car's going to be basically stock, just like it rolled off of the factory, except for the engine dress-up kit. The only thing that's been replaced as far as the sheet metal, it's got 2 new doors on it. It's got a lower front gravel pan, and basically all the rest of the sheet metal is the original sheet metal on the car, and the hood's been replaced. It's got a new hood. My name is Gene Norton, and I love Fords.
I've had 37 cars, my wife and I have, since we've been married, ranging everything from the basic Volkswagen to Mercedes. But to me, the fun cars were the ones out of the 50s and 60s that had more personality than the cars do today. The shop is where I enjoy coming for relaxation. And we built this building in about 1999 when we moved back to Bladenboro. My dad had a woodworking shop up in the garage, which have all of his tools and things in here, but I wanted more space so I could work on my cars. So we built this nice little one bay shop, fully air conditioned and heated, where I can come and work no matter what the outside conditions are and keep my car safely protected from the elements. This is a 1966 Sunbeam Tiger that I've owned for about 18 years. I bought it from the husband of a friend of my wife's in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and have had it since. We drove the car for 5 or 6 years, and then I decided it's time for a restoration. It's a fairly rare car. There are only 5,700 cars made of this model, of which about 2,500 are still in existence. This car came with a 200 horsepower Ford V8 engine in it, which made it very attractive to people like me, which are interested in strong cars that can be modified. I have a 347 cubic inch, 400 horsepower engine in place now, which will make quite a performer out of this car. To me, I've always loved automobiles in many different facets of it, from hot rodding to sports cars to street machines to modified cars, and this one machine here will culminate all of my efforts, in essence, of a lifetime of passion and work that have gone into cars. I've been working on this seriously the last 2 or 3 years. I've had the car completely apart. The bottom of the car has been scraped and completely refinished. The trunk area is ready, it's completed, and the interior is all stripped down, ready for installation of the new interior kit and new convertible top that I've purchased. So I have probably another year of very busy work to get this car back on the street.
And this is the first car I drove. It's a 1968 Falcon. My daddy would let me drive it around the backyard, around our backyard and everything. He was teaching me how to drive, so he'd let me drive it and everything. And I'd say, when I went to get my driver's test, this was the only thing I was used to driving. And also, we went to it was right down the street where you took your driver's test then. And so we went down there and everything, and it was kind of funny because the lady got in the car with me, you know, that rides with you when you go to, you know, take your test. And she said, well, wait a minute, there's not any seat belts in here. And I said, yeah, there is, hold on a minute. And you know, through the years, you know, my daddy's not a car freak like my husband is. So my daddy had sort of, you know, rigged up seat belts. So you had to sort of, you know, tie them around you and hook them.
Yeah.
And through the years it had gotten old, and the buttons, the switch had gone bad on it. So my daddy put buttons on it, and you had to like turn the key till the red lights come on, and then it was like push this button, flip this one, push that one down, push this one to the side, and then push the last button and it would crank up. And that's how you had to do every time you cranked it. Well, the woman got in and we got the seatbelt finally straight and everything, and then I went to crank it and she seen, and you had to hold the gear stick up too because the gear thing, Jason calls it linkage, was loose, so you had to hold the gear stick up. And anyway, we finally got it cranked and everything, and I took my driver's test in it, and I drove this the last 2 years that I was in school and everything. My 11th and 12th grade year, I drove this, and matter of fact, after me and Jason got married and everything, if I needed an extra car or something, if something was wrong with mine, my daddy'd let me use this, and I hated to use it because it was, you know, like a, you know, Jason loved it, but I hated it, and I let Jason drive it one time, and Jason realized why I hated it, because you could like turn the steering wheel all the way this way, and the car would stay still. And he said it had a lot of loose motion, you know, you just kind of, you know, you're driving down the road and the steering wheel's doing like this the whole time. But anyway, my daddy, you know, he gave it to me, so I'm going to keep it, you know, and everything. But in the future, it's possibly, by the time my children get old enough to drive, hopefully they'll be able to take it to the car show. Hopefully the car club will still be going on, and my children will be just, you know, really into the car club scene like Jason and I are, and that, you know, my little girl, probably not. She's a Mustang girl. But my little boy, I believe, as long as it's a Ford, you're going to have him in it. So I believe if it's fixed and pretty, I think he'll take it to the car show. And I think he'd be proud to do it.
This car, it's a 68 Mustang. I bought it originally to Pro Street it. I had a tilt fiberglass front end, you know, the whole 9 yards. And had bought the stuff to do it. My daughter fell in love with it. And she wanted me to fix it back original, so I ended up giving it to her. She's 8-year-old now, and she's wanting to drag it in the shop. So I reckon the Fairlane over there and the Mustang will be going in next, where Daddy won't have nothing to work. He'll have to work out here under the back shelter, I reckon. But she can recognize the Mustang coming down the road. I mean, we'd be going down the road. I mean, you wouldn't way. I mean, we can be way down the road. And she can pick them out just like that. She's a Mustang girl.
Then I started talking to some of the guys in town that had started a car club, and they finally talked me into joining the car club. At that time, a Mustang had sit up on the shelter for 10 years, and I didn't drive it that much until I joined the car club. And then I was very motivated. I met a lot of good guys in the car club. They was very friendly. They liked to talk about cars. We made a lot of jokes. We made a lot of friends. And one of the things I really liked about it is when you go to the club, everybody would jump on you and talk about your car and this, that, and the other, and nobody seemed to get mad. Fords would jump on the Chevrolets, Chevrolets would jump on the Fords, and that kind of thing. And I said, this is the kind of place I want to be, in a club where friends can know how I can talk to friends about their cars and not get mad. But yet still, if something happened, they would go and help the other guy fix their car or give them suggestions on how to fix their car. And that's still the reason I'm still with the club now, is for that very same reason. The club now has some very good people in it, and I want to be around good people at all times.
A lot of people will join a club just to say they're in a club. The ones we got now all work together. We got the best members we could have. Everybody works together. I mean, you know, so it's better to have a small club with people that actually get the job done than a big club, you know, and just, that's the way I feel about it. That's the way the rest of us feel about it.
Anytime you grow older, it changes. I don't care where you are, people change towards you. That's the one thing that growing older, the way it hurts. But I go right ahead and do what I want to and when I want to anyway.
Can you count to 10 for me?
Can I who?
Count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
That sounds southern enough. I was an unconventional teacher. I taught history, and I didn't stand up and lecture. Lakewood students really dig history. There's the sarcophagus and the mummy that they made. I had a principal who was the greatest man in the world as far as letting me do what I wanted to do, wanted to try. Diggers were careful not to injure the stone in the burial pit. We had the best time doing that. I had a group of seniors, and they were very intelligent. My principal came in with a little book called Foxfire, and he asked me, would I be interested in doing this for the rest of the year with this class? And I read it, and I said, that sounds interesting. I am so proud of those 3 books. more than anything that I've done in my life.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to.
I've talked about myself long enough.
Well, I am gonna be asking you more questions about yourself because this is a portrait of you.
This was the first one. Pitch and tar comes from the pine tree. This is Ms. Minnie Crumpler and her husband, Mr. Claude Crumpler, and she had a fascinating story. Her mother was a slave. Her grandmother, she said, was a slave. They died, and she had nobody to take care of her as a child. The title of the story was "That's the Truth," and she'd say, "That's the truth." Here's a lady who made brooms, and we all went and watched her make the brooms. We wrote about the mysterious Dr. Payne. He was never, ever seen without that black bag. This is a story of the last hanging in Sampson County. It tells who he is, it tells why he was hanged, and it tells why he was the last man to be hanged. This is us going through a field trying to find his grave, because this man with us said he's buried right out here somewhere in this field. So we looked and looked and looked and looked until we found it, dug up his tombstone, which was about 8 feet down, and put it up on top of his grave. Here is a picture of my family's drugstore. It was established here in Roseboro in 1908.
You can put it down.
By my great uncle, my father's uncle. My father became a pharmacist. His son, my brother, was a pharmacist. His son, my nephew, was a pharmacist. That is a mule and wagon. Man driving a mule and looks like a tobacco drag. What we used to call tobacco drags, that you put the tobacco in to take it to the barn. But you don't see that now. Well, these kids remember it because they saw it and took a picture of it. Instead of reading history, we wrote history. Instead of reading about Sampson County, we wrote about Sampson County. What would you think that is? That's making soap. They didn't know anything about how to make soap. I didn't know how to make soap. We were writing and drawing history. The White House, Washington, March 17th, 1975. I was glad to hear from you and to receive a copy of Pitch and Tar. It is important that each of us take pride in the work that we do. Your work reflects such pride, and I want to congratulate your outstanding efforts. Keep up the good work. Sincerely, Gerald R. Ford. That's not bad. You can get the president to say that to you about these books. These stories, these 3 little books that we wrote, that my kids wrote, are so important because they see how fortunate they are that they don't have to do it that way. That's one thing. Another thing is history. It's the way it was and will probably never be. It was the most successful thing that I, as a teacher, has ever done. It was the most successful thing that, as a teacher, I have ever done. And you see, I didn't want to say. I didn't want to. That's talking about yourself.
That's the point of this, though. I wanted to hear about you.
No, that's just talking about yourself.
Hello, Granny. What you doing? Huh? What you doing? I knew you'd do that. I knew you'd do that. Yeah. That's the runningest dog I've ever seen.
There comes a time when you become the one that doesn't know much, and the younger person knows it all, and you're ignored a lot of times, even though you've got good ideas.
You're doing great.
This is not my thing. What I feel as an older person has nothing to do with Roseboro.
It's really interesting thinking about your experience here as a young person and then as a teacher and then now as an older person living in Roseboro, and you've been here your whole life. That's really interesting.
Well, when I was young, Roseboro was full. You don't see much uptown. You go uptown. It was full when I was growing up. Saturday, everybody came to town. You had a corner preacher. It used to fascinate me. There was a man on the corner that came on Saturday, and he'd have a Bible in his hand, and he would preach and yell and preach. And there were parched peanuts. Man on the street had a machine that parched peanuts, and you could smell that all over town. And there were just people everywhere, just on the sidewalk shopping. That's what I remember of Roseboro. That camaraderie. That's my childhood. I regret never getting married. I regret that terribly. Never having a family. I did want a family and to live what I would call a normal life like everybody else. But when you're the only lady in a town that does not have that privilege, it's tough. But I did enjoy teaching. That was my love. Am I through?
No.
No. Sorry.
This is so boring, though.
No, it's not. It's really not.
It's so boring.
Trust me.
You want me to start fixing supper and y'all stay and eat supper with me?
Sure. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, is that okay? Is it okay if I film you making supper?
Okay, we've got. If you'd say to me, you've got a chance to go anywhere in the world that you want to, forever, or you can go for a year or 3 years. Where would you want to go? I'd say Roseboro. I'm just as satisfied in Roseboro as I would be anywhere else in the world. Only place I know that I would be happier is heaven. And that'll come one day. Bye-bye, Shugs. You be careful. As my grandpa used to say, be particular. Yeah, my boy's kind of like a rabbit or a squirrel. You go off somewhere. He said, now be particular.
Oh, hello, little doggy.
Be careful there. They're fire ants.
Okay, I'll be careful.
Okay, now I've warned you. You're right in the middle of them.